Unless something goes catastrophically wrong with him, the second Deshaun Watson is available to play, he will be the starter. And you know why? Jimmy Haslam put $250 million in the bank account to have it happen. It's happening, dog. Like, if you pay $10 for a meal at McDonald's, you expect to eat that meal. You don't expect somebody to open that window and be like, hey, I know you ordered that Big Mac, but how about you try a chicken sandwich? You're not going for that, right? You want the Big Mac that you ordered. And that's $10 we talking about. Imagine if you paid $230 million up front. Good morning, everybody, and everybody who watches this video. We got a lot of questions following the Browns win on a victory. What is it, Saturday? A Super Saturday. We call it a Super Saturday edition of QnA. A lot of questions to get into, so I'm just going to jump straight into it. We got a question from CTG Cement who says, how do you think the linebacking room will fare for the rest of the season without AWalk, and for the time being, JOK seems like a tall task to me. JOK, we'll see if he even misses a game. Right now, that's not 100% clear. Obviously, him being out is going to be a presence that's missed. As far as Anthony Walker goes, he's going to be missed as well, but at a little bit lower of a level because at least Jacob Phillips was being groomed for that role. And once he wasn't having to worry about, rotating in and out, he did seem to play better. So maybe that sparked something in him. Either way, it sucks to lose AWalk for the year. And it sucks to lose JOK for any period of time. But hopefully, since they spent so many resources over the past few years at linebacker, right? You drafted Tony Fields, you kept Sione Takitaki, you're prepared for this moment. Maybe they might feel like Malcolm Smith is a guy that they pick up off the street to bring in, that be an extra body. He's a guy that's been here for a while. That might be another guy that they think about bringing in who's played well in this system before. So any of those things, I think, could end up being helpful. I don't think it's going to be a big deal, but it's definitely something they have to make some adjustments for, most certainly. All right, the next question comes from N4, who says, do you have any thoughts on how Ward has been playing recently? Definitely seen a drop from his usual performance. Could it be just an unlucky stretch or the start of a problem? Right now, this is kind of par for the course for Denzel Ward. Like, he has like at least 3 games every year where he just doesn't look good for whatever reason. Usually they're in bunches, and then we worry about Denzel Ward, and then he shows up and he's Denzel Ward again. Like, it's just, he is consistently inconsistent in that way. That's the pattern I've been seeing with Denzel. Nothing has showed me that this is anything out the usual with him. But if this continues for like 8 games, then yeah, this is a problem. If it continues, honestly, next week, I would assume it's a problem at that point. But yeah, with Denzel, I'm going to give him a bit of slack here just because they had to change up the defense with the Ronnie Harrison injury that happened during warmups, and things got weird. So that probably played into why he was not playing so well. But, again, he always has these moments early in the season where he just doesn't look good. Like, every year we've been doing this. I've been doing this, since 2018, literally outside of his first year. Every year, 2019, 2020, 2021, we've been having these conversations about, is Denzel Ward falling off? Is he not as good as we thought? And then he plays, he does this every year. He really does. Now again, had to see him turn it around like he usually does. And I would wish he wouldn't do this every year, right? I wish he would give us a whole season's worth of great games. But this is something that happens every year. We have this conversation every year. So I'm just, until it becomes an unusual, like it lasts longer than it usually does, then I'm not going to start tripping about it. Adam with the question says, hey, with Jacoby balling out the way he has and Deshaun presumably being needing to de-rust a bit, what ways will our offense upgrade week 13 versus Houston? It could upgrade immediately. I'm going to play it safe and say for about 2 more weeks, it's probably going to be closer to what you have with Brissett with the ideal of knowing that, hey, at any moment, Deshaun can just become Deshaun again, right? And that's the hope that he gives you. That's why he probably makes you a better team. I've heard a lot of conversation about what if Jacoby does this and that, and we'll get into that because it's another question that's been asked. But yeah, I don't think the change will be immediate. Week 13, I don't think like Deshaun gonna go out there and throw like 8 touchdowns and we can be like, oh my God, this is crazy. It could happen, but I don't think it's gonna happen, right? I think this is gonna be a gradual thing where maybe the first couple of weeks we're like, oh, well, he kind of looks normal out there. And then maybe there's a big game where he plays really well, or hopefully they get to the playoffs and he plays well. But it's gonna be a gradual thing. You're not gonna be like, oh my God, Deshaun, like the upgrades are super obvious, I think, the first couple of weeks, because I think Kevin's going to play this safe. And another thing to keep in mind, this is unlikely, but like, let's say the Browns get to 8 wins with Jacoby Brissett or something like that. I find it very likely that at that point, if the Browns have like 8 wins in a clear path to the playoffs and they only need 3 wins to get in with the last 6, then I think Kevin's not going to run like the most complicated and the most like big playbook that he can run. I think he's going to play a more pared down version of it, hold some cards close to his chest so he can use them when it matters the most. So, we'll see what Deshaun looks like coming off of this suspension. I tend to think that he'll be fine coming off of it sooner than later, but also we should probably practice some caution. Davita says, how long do you think the offense will take to build the chemistry we see developing with Jacoby with Deshaun? Well, I'll answer this question by saying this. Given that it's week 3 and we're already talking about the chemistry that they have developed with Jacoby Brissett, and week 2 is when it started, it gives you a pretty good answer, right? Probably like a week or 2. And it might be less because Deshaun worked with them so much more during the offseason as the number 1 quarterback. Jacoby really only got like 2 weeks plus the game week. So 3 weeks there. Deshaun had the whole program with these guys. So it might not take that long. And remember, Deshaun gets to come back into the building in October. He gets to start practicing again in November. The chemistry could probably be back sooner than later. Again, I think we're talking about week 3 already with the chemistry Jacoby has with these guys. Maybe there's an adjustment that first week he's back, but I think they make those adjustments right after. But I don't think it'll be long. I think the rust narrative has been overblown. Is it going to be a factor? Certainly. How much is it going to matter has been a little overblown to me, right? Is he going to be 2020 Deshaun Watson? Who knows? Like, maybe if he even played continuously throughout his career, he might never have a season that good again. But is he going to be reminiscent of the player that the Browns are paying $230 million? Probably at some point sooner than later. But that's probably going to be the case. Pee Wee says, how good is the offensive lineman playing? Would love to see a breakdown of some film at the Big Nasties. They're playing really well. A lot of guys are giving them flack, specifically like Jed Wills. And look, Jed has a problem getting beat inside, and certainly his ankle injury didn't help anything in regards to that. But I do think people are a bit tough on Jedrick for no reason. I think Jedrick's been playing well. I think everybody's been playing well. Even James Hudson has been playing well. The offensive line has been a strength of this team, and they're playing closer to 2020 levels than they are 2021, if that puts the barometer out there for you. This next question comes from Gregory, who says, what are your thoughts on special teams? 12 men on the field 3 times, 2-month onside kicks, and 2 extra points. See, I was almost ready to give Mike Prefer some slack before this Thursday night game because I was a bit tough on him about the onside kick, because I felt like in retrospect that onside kick the Jets got, sure, could it have been played better? Absolutely, but they kicked it in the right spot, like a perfect kick. And sometimes a good play just is a good play, and you can't fire somebody because the other team made a good play. But the 12 men on the field 3 times. And here's why that bugged me. Last year, if you recall, there was this sequence where the Browns had 12 men on the field versus the Baltimore Ravens. This was the Sunday night football game. The Browns had 12 men on the field. They called timeout. They come out of timeout. They have 12 men on the field again. And this is a punt, by the way. So this is all special teams. And let me be clear on that. This is all special teams. They come back out after the timeout. Come back out for punt. 12 men on the field. Penalty gets thrown, but I think Baltimore has a procedural penalty before it. So it doesn't matter. 12 men on the field again. So they get another chance to reset. 12 men on the field. One play, 12 men on the field. Mike Prefer. What's the job description, right? Like that's really my point with Mike is like everything that you ask a special teams coach to do, it seems like he doesn't do well. The kick return coverages, they're terrible. They're terrible. Like they keep giving up like 30-yard kick returns in an era where it's almost impossible to do that. Right. So they're bad at kick coverages. They're bad at punt coverages. They're bad at punt returning and they're bad at kick returning. The decision making specifically bugs me. And it was one thing when I thought it was just Donovan Peoples-Jones. But then when Demetric Felton out there doing the same exact stuff that's driving me crazy about Donovan Peoples-Jones and then Jerome Ford out here doing the same stuff on kickoffs. This is being coached. These decisions are being coached. It doesn't make any sense, right? Like that, it's the onside kick formation sucks. I don't know how you have a bad on. I didn't know there were variations of the onside kick recovery. I'm gonna be honest with you. Didn't know that was a thing that people were like coming up with different plays for. I'm not a special teams guru, but what they're running sucks, and it's not what everybody else runs. So it's weird. It's really weird. It's really weird. The missed extra point, who cares? That's not on him. The missed extra points are on Cade York and Cade York only. That can't be on Mike Prefer, okay? Mike Prefer is not a kicking guru. Cade York goes to his kicking guru. That's who coaches Cade York, and that's really who matters for Cade York. Mike Prefer ain't giving him no tips. He don't know what he's talking about when it comes to kicking. That's not what his job is. What his job is to make sure you don't have 12 men on the field in special teams. What his job is to make sure you have an acceptable onside kick recovery team. What his job is to make sure your returners are coached well to put your team in the best position possible. What his job is that stuff, kick coverages. That's the stuff you should judge him on. The extra point, I don't care. But that's the stuff he should be judged on. And if you're judging him on that, like, I don't know how we could say it's been good. It's been bad for 3 years. In my opinion, I have not been impressed. This is a big downgrade from Chris Tabor, right? And the fact that I got to bring up Chris Tabor's name in 2022 tells you everything you need to know about what the job I think Mike Prefer's doing. Now, he might have more responsibilities than special teams coach behind the scenes. I don't know what the extent of his responsibilities are, but man, there's something wrong with special teams, and he the coach. So, Kevin says, "Hey Q, do you think there's a real chance of Jacoby getting a starting job over Watson for the remainder of the year? He's been playing a lot better than a lot of starting quarterbacks in the league." There's absolutely. I know people are writing articles. This is the new clickbait, right? We've been through like 3 versions of this clickbait when it comes to Jacoby Brissett, and we've gone full circle with it. So I'm kind of impressed, right? At first, the clickbait was, hey, the Browns should keep Baker Mayfield. And by the way, this all comes from Pro Football Talk. Like, I'm going to just name names at this point. Remember Pro Football Talk put out that first article? The Browns should hold on to Baker Mayfield in case of a Watson suspension because he would be the best quarterback available. Remember that clickbait that was out there? You came to this channel, brought that clickbait here. I'm like, nah, it's never happening. For this reason, that reason, that reason. Okay. Then the next clickbait was, okay, they traded Baker Mayfield. All right. You know who the Browns should bring in? Jimmy Garoppolo. That's who they should bring in. Jimmy Garoppolo. And then you came to this channel and I was like, nah, that's clickbait. This is why they would not do that. It's not a realistic scenario. It's just straight garbage. Okay. All right. Cool. And now, ironically enough, after writing article after article trying to get Jacoby out the paint, now Jacoby so good, we not going to go to the dude that you paid $230 million guaranteed to play quarterback. That's the part that's like, this is the most wild it's gotten. And it's honestly fascinating to me because there is zero chance, a negative amount of chance, unless Deshaun Watson fails his program and does not get reinstated, unless he has another outburst of situations and cases pop up, unless something goes catastrophically wrong with him, the second Deshaun Watson is available to play, he will be the starter. And you know why? Jimmy Haslam put $250 million in the bank account to have it happen. It's happening, dog. Like, if you pay $10 for a meal at McDonald's, you expect to eat that meal. You don't expect somebody to open that window and be like, hey, I know you ordered that Big Mac, but how about you try a chicken sandwich? You're not going for that, right? You want the Big Mac that you ordered. And that's $10 we talking about. Imagine if you paid $230 million up front. And they open the window. Hey, I know you like Deshaun Watson, but here Jacoby Brissett. No, dog, that ain't flying. I'm sorry. Like, there's zero chance because not only does Kevin Stefanski want Deshaun Watson in the game, not only does Andrew Berry and John DePodesta want him in the game, I promise you there will be no hesitation from Jimmy Haslam to put the dude that he's paid already $230 million to guaranteed in that game. I'm sorry. He ain't going to be like, hey, Jacoby been good, let him hold it down. That's not happening. There is zero shot. Negative. It's not happening. Again, the McDonald's analogy is good because I promise you pay $5 for something, you want what you paid $5 for. Imagine $230 million and then not getting what you want immediately. He already got to wait 11 games. You think he happy about that? Like, you think he'll wait longer? No. This is the most fantasy of a scenario that anybody's brought up. It's more fantastical than Baker Mayfield. It's more fantastical than the Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, this is just pure fiction. Like, I'm sorry. It's not happening. I like Jacoby Brissett as much as anybody, but just look at the reality of it. Somebody put $230 million in escrow to put Deshaun Watson in brown and orange. He going to play the second he can play. That's just the truth of it. Thank you for the question, Kevin. Next question comes from John, who says, regardless of Clowney being there, what are some ways that the Browns could scheme up for Myles, make his life a little bit easier, sort of like how the Steelers do for TJ Watt? I know they play different positions, but I feel like more can be done for Myles, also help him towards the end of the year. Well, here's the problem that Myles runs into, right? TJ Watt's in a 3-4, so there's only so much you could do to not be honest with that based on the scheme. And also they have Alex Highsmith, who is a serviceable enough pass rusher to where you got to be honest with how you play the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's hard. That's why the Browns, I think they came out in a lot of 5-man front. It just didn't work out. The personnel is the big problem. Be honest with you, right? If you don't have strong enough personnel on the defensive line to keep teams honest, they're not going to play honest with you. And that's what Jadeveon Clowney makes happen, right? He's good enough to where teams have to stay honest when they play the Cleveland Browns. If he's not out there and it's just Alex Wright, Isaac Rochelle, and the guys, yeah, it ain't happening. Right, you ain't got enough playmakers to keep guys honest, and they'll be able to get that off on you. Schematically, there's not much you can do about that, right? That's a personnel thing. That's a talent thing. You need people to step up at that point. Scheme can't save you from everything. You might be able to scheme up a couple of plays for Myles, a couple of opportunities. Who knows if you get them, if they're schemed up on the right scenario, but you can get a couple opportunities with scheme, but they'll rotate, slide over, whatever they need to do. This is more of like you need the personnel to keep offenses honest. That's what's going to help you in these situations. Next question comes from Matt, who says, hey, Q, just wanted to ask, what do you think Kevin Stefanski seems so polarizing when I watch him conduct his team, the level of competency and professionalism that I haven't seen as a Browns fan, but yet people complain about how bland his press conferences are, him not running the ball enough. Not a real football coach, all that nonsensical stuff. Here's what I think happens with Kevin Stefanski. to the average fan, and I'm not disparaging the average fan, I'm just painting a realistic picture. There's a lot of fans who don't really know what the coach's responsibility is, and that's in part because a lot of the coach's job is done behind closed doors, or it's not on TV, right? It's not like quarterback where we see you every play. If you suck, we gonna know. With coaching, it's a little bit more difficult. We have to use our imaginations a bit more. And not everybody watches film breakdowns or watches all 22 film or listens to people who have more perspective on this than others. A lot of people, when they think of what a good coach is, they're usually thinking of like fictional characters. And I'm not saying like, oh, you're a stupid fan because you think of fiction. I'm being like dead serious. This is what media does to people. Your perception of what a football coach is going to be is what's most prevalent. And what's most prevalent is that stereotype of the Hollywood coach, right? The football coach in the movies that's going to scream and yell and get the guys together and show tough love. And he going to be tough and rumble, and he going to put you in timeout and, you know, punish you and all that. But when it comes time to support you, he got like, we have this Friday Night Lights ideal of what a coach should be. That's not who Kevin Stefanski is. Bill Belichick faced similar criticism, right, in Cleveland and in other places, because he's not what people want emotionally out of a coach, because he's not the coach that you're going to write a movie about. You know, he's not Sean Payton. Sean Payton is a movie coach, right? If I've ever seen one. Pete Carroll is a movie coach, right? He's like those dudes from Friday Night Lights. Like he gives you the motivational speech. He does this stuff. You feel good about it, right? Like, you know what I mean? Kevin don't give you none of that. But that don't mean he's not good at his job. That just means he's not a movie style coach, right? He's a much more play it close to his vest. Who knows what he's actually saying behind closed doors to his team? But what I know is that, you know, nobody says a bad word about him. If people have issues with the Cleveland Browns, it's usually not directed at Kevin Stefanski and his offenses. When he's had a cooperating quarterback, have been pretty good. So, yeah, I get why people feel that way, because they just don't know how to handle a coach that does not fit their ideal of what a coach should be. And I think instead of evaluating that and why they feel like that and maybe evolving their view of coaches, people kind of regress to just being angry about it. That happens a lot in culture when things change and people don't know how to handle it or how to understand the new change. People just get mad at the new. How many people you know don't like music from 20 years ago? I mean, that like music from 20 years ago, that hate the music now. You might be one of them people, right? Like, this is a natural thing human beings do when something doesn't fit the mold of the ideal of what they have in their head is a football coach. And Kevin doesn't fit that mold that people have in their head, commonly associated with like the movies and stuff. And I think that goes into why so many people want to get Kevin out the paint, despite him being an objectively really good coach. Like, I'm not even comparing him anymore to Browns coaches. I think he's probably I think he's a better coach than John Harbaugh, despite John having more accolades. And he's up there with Mike Tomlin, be honest with you, right? Like, he outcoached Mike Tomlin on Thursday night a couple of times. If we want to use that term, I kind of hate that term, but he outmaneuvered Mike Tomlin a couple of times for sure. For sure. On Thursday. And Mike Tomlin be having his hands full when he play against the Cleveland Browns. And that's partly on Kevin Stefanski, man. Like, I think if you ask these other coaches what they think of Kevin, they gonna tell you he cold, man. Like, I think that's just the truth of it. But yeah, I get why fans feel the way they do. I don't think they're right though. The fans that think that Kevin's not good. Will says, did Wood's lack of blitzing contribute to the lack of production by Myles Garrett last night? Or does that wear him out more? It's more of if they're going to put three guys on Myles Garrett and we can't win one-on-one blocks in base, what's the point of blitzing? Because we're just not going to get home and we're going to have less guys in coverage. If your blitz is not successful, you can't continue to spam it, right? That's why Greg Williams is not in the league anymore, because Greg will spam blitzes whether they work or not, and that gets you burnt. It gets you a lot of sacks, but it gets you burnt more than it gets you sacks. Anthony Smith says, Q, do you think the NFL should find a D lineman that decided to body slam? Okay, that's a bit different of a description than what happened. I don't think he body slammed him. All right, so here's what I feel about this, man. Football is a violent sport. These rivalries are built off of violence. And after every whistle, dirty shit happens on both sides. It's not something that's pretty. It's not something that we like. And I promise you, as much as Browns fans are holding up that clip of that Chuksa for jumping on Anthony Walker, there are like 4 other clips that Steeler fans are going to respond back to, right? And what that shows you is that they both be doing stuff like that all the time. It's unfortunate that Anthony Walker was hurt and then that offensive lineman did it. But when I watched the tape, I don't think Chooks knew that he was hurt and then did it. I think he was just doing the normal rivalry game, I'm a mess with your shit, right? Like, I don't think it was a malicious attempt to hurt Anthony Walker. And I don't think that hurt Anthony Walker more. That's within the normal realm of football. I understand why we don't like it, because like it seems like you're adding insult to injury literally right there. But if the situation were flipped, we would be more understanding of what actually went down. And I'm not in the business of only making excuses for the teams that I cheer for, right? If I'm going to make an excuse, if it happens to me, I got to make that excuse when it happens and it's not in my favor, right? I have to be consistent on some of these things of this nature where is something dirty. Are we going to ruin the reputation of a player based on what they did? And I just don't think that that's what he was trying to do. But yeah, I get why fans are going to run with it, but it's a rivalry game, man. They be doing stuff like that. It's just football at the end of the day. But that's it for this week's Q&A. I want to appreciate and thank you guys for asking all those questions. You have a great day. Have a good night.